Welcome back. Let's look at a competitive firm's profit or loss in a diagram. So before we get there, let's set up a couple of quick ideas. So if we think about what is profit, right? Profit must mean that revenues are greater than costs. So if we think about profit, what is profit? That just means that total revenue minus total costs must be positive. So profit means you're bringing more cash in than is going out the door. Let's have a little bit of fun with math. Okay, don't worry, this isn't too bad. But if we think about this idea, so profit equals total revenue minus total costs, well, let's just scale this slightly differently. So let's think about average total revenue. So total revenue divided by quantity minus total costs divided by quantity. And if we take that and we multiply it by Q, now we're in a situation where this is still equal to profit, right? So multiplying crosses out or cancels out, dividing by Q, so we've still got profit is equal to total revenue minus cost. So if we just divide through by Q and multiply through by Q, we're still okay mathematically. So why did we do this? Well, because these terms are something that we can understand a little bit more clearly. So what is total revenue divided by quantity? That's just the price, right? How much revenue comes in divided by the quantity sold must be the price that it was sold at. And what is total cost divided by Q? So that's minus total cost divided by Q. So that's then our average total cost. So remember, we're just translating these two terms in the price and average total cost, and then we multiply by Q, and we're still good with that equals profit. So what is this price minus average total cost? Right? How do we think about that? So this isn't a technical term, but you could kind of think about it this way. This is like our per unit profit. Right? This is like a per unit profit. Again, remember, in this case, we're talking about competitive firms. They take prices as given from the market. They're able to sell as many as they want into that market without changing price. We're still thinking in terms of a competitive firm or a competitive market. All right, so profit is equal to price minus the average cost of producing the good times how many were sold. All right, so how does the firm go about maximizing its profit or looking at it? So let's think about a process here. So we want to think about our process. So what's our process? Well, the first step is remember that profit is maximized where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So profit max is at the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Okay, so what do we do with that then? So once we've got that, we can use that point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and we can find the quantity of the units that this firm should produce. Right, so we use marginal revenue equals marginal cost to find the optimal quantity, Q star. So where our marginal cost curve crosses over with the price, our marginal revenue, we say, okay, that gives us our optimal quantity. And then, at that quantity, we see, is the firm profitable or not? So at Q star, what we want to know is the price greater than or less than average total cost? Is the firm profitable or not at this profit maximizing point? Sometimes a firm may maximize its profit but still not be profitable. So at Q star, we want to see if average total cost is greater than or less than price, right? So at Q star, we see what average total cost is and we compare it to the price. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of words and a fair amount of jargon. Let's look at this in a diagram. Matter of fact, let's look at it in two diagrams and see if we can make sense of this. So let's set up two similar diagrams, one for a high price and one for a low price. All right, so on our vertical axis, we're talking about dollars. Horizontal, we're talking about Q. I'm going to set up the top diagram. This is going to be a high price. So a high price. And for my bottom diagram, this is going to be the low price. Okay, so for each one, let's put in our average total cost and our marginal cost curves. So remember, average total cost is this U-shaped curve. Right? Why? Well, we'll get to that in just a second. So drawing this U-shaped curve, this is our average total cost. Average total cost. And marginal cost is that upward sloping curve, but it crosses through average total cost at the minimum. So that's then marginal cost. And this one, marginal cost. All right, why does marginal cost cross through average total cost at the minimum? And why is this thing U-shaped? So we've talked about average total cost being U-shaped in other videos. So as the firm produces more units, its marginal cost increases. It's got to use suppliers that are farther away. It's using more marginal labor or hiring workers that aren't as skilled as before. Or there's a line to use the cash register or a stamping machine or whatever. We've told lots of stories for why marginal cost is increasing. All right, so why is average total cost U-shaped? Well, initially, the fixed cost, like rent, for example, as the firm produces more units, now that rent is being spread out across more units. So that average total cost drops pretty quickly as quantity increases. But at some point, the increase in marginal cost overpowers that distribution of that fixed cost out to the different units. So once marginal cost crosses average total cost, what really jargony, right? Hang on, we'll think about this for just a second. Once the cost of the next unit is higher than the average of the units that have already been produced, right? So the cost of the next unit is higher than the average of the units that have already been produced. What does that do to the overall average cost? It pulls it up. So marginal cost crosses average total cost at the minimum point of the average total cost curve. All right, let's get back into thinking about this sort of profit idea. So let's start with a high price. So if we come in and we find a price, we'll call it like P sub H for a high price. Now remember, this is a competitive firm, so they can sell as many units as they want at that high price. So the demand curve looks something like that, right? It's just this horizontal line at that price. So this high price, that's the firm's marginal revenue, right? Each additional unit it sells at that price. So we said our process for our firms is that their profit max is when marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Okay, where does marginal revenue equal marginal cost? We find where those two curves cross. So one unit, what does the firm think? It thinks, well, gee, I can get marginal revenue of this high price, but my cost is low. Yep, produce it. All right, what about a second unit? I can get this high price, cost is still relatively low. Yep, produce it. And they just keep going on until eventually they say, well, what's my revenue from the next unit and what's my cost? Those are equal to each other. Okay, that's where I'll stop. So that gives us their optimal quantity Q star. Okay, so at Q star, is this firm making a profit or not? So what was our next step? We said we use our marginal revenue equals marginal cost to find Q star. We've done that. And then at Q star, we see how does average total cost compare to price. So we see average total cost at Q star, right? Q star, oh, there's our average total cost for it. And if we compare it to price, average total cost is less than price. So this firm must be profitable. So what does that look like in this graph? So if we find this average total cost, we just kind of draw it in, right? So this is our average total cost for Q star. We can see the profit here. So they're making Q star. Here's their average total cost. So this lower rectangle, that's going to be their total cost, right? But for each unit they sell, Q star, they're selling at a higher price than their average total cost. So this rectangle, the quantity that they sell times the difference between price and average total cost, that's the firm's profit. Right? That area is profit. Does that match up with what we set up earlier? Price minus average total cost times quantity is profit. So price minus average total cost, so that difference between it, times quantity, yep, that rectangle is the firm's profit. All right, what if, though, the firm is operating in an environment where the price is pretty low? Not a high price, but instead a low price. So in our lower diagram, let's put in a price, and let's call it P sub L. Or if you've got space, maybe you could even write out P low. However you want to note it is fine. So at that low price, remember, firms can sell as many units as they want. It's a competitive market. So that low price, that's the firm's marginal revenue. Okay, so let's go through our process again. If this firm is trying to maximize its profit, what does it do? It goes through the decision of, do they make the next unit? Do they make the next unit? Do they make the next unit? Until they hit their profit max point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So marginal revenue equals marginal cost right there. And they use that point to find their optimal quantity Q star. Q star. All right, so at Q star, they want to see what their average total costs look like. And right away we go, uh-oh, we got a problem. So at Q star, where are their average total costs? It's up there, right? So what's the average total cost if they're producing Q star? It's this point. So this is their average total cost for Q star. Right, so at Q star, see average total cost, and let's compare it to price. This firm's got a problem. Their average total cost is greater than the price. Right, over here, their average total cost is greater than the price. So what does that mean? That means their costs exceed their revenue, so they're losing on every unit. Right, so if they lose on every unit, how much do they lose in total? Well, it's their loss per unit times the quantity they sell. Okay, so the loss per unit, so their costs, average total costs, minus price, is the difference between those two. And how much do they lose? We said it's their loss per unit times the quantity. All right, so times Q star, it's this rectangle. What is that? That's the firm's loss. So let's take these two ideas, what we've seen for a high price and a low price, and let's finish out our profit. So our process for profit, excuse me. So our process was to find the profit maximizing point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Use that point to find Q star. Use Q star to see what average total cost is and compare it to P. So what are our takeaways then? So if the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost is greater than average total cost, then they're making a profit, right? This is our story up here. So if marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and that's greater than average total cost, right? Marginal revenue is really what we're focused on here. We just set it equal to marginal cost to keep beating that into our brains. But if that revenue, that price, is greater than average total cost, then the firm is going to make a profit. However, if marginal revenue equals marginal cost and it's less than average total cost, then the firm is going to make a loss. And if you're looking at this and you're thinking, wait, marginal revenue, marginal cost, I thought we were talking about price up here, now we're using marginal revenue, marginal cost. Remember, where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, what is our marginal revenue for a competitive firm? This is really just saying if price is greater than average total cost, they make a profit, and if price is less than average total cost, the firm's going to make a loss. So I know there's a lot of jargon over here and a lot of stuff going on in these diagrams, but I bet if you spend a few minutes working through it, thinking about it, and really thinking, how does the firm make a decision? What does each line in the graph mean? I bet you can figure it out. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.